Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Truth Quest. My name is Aaron Moriarty. I will be your host. And together, we're going to go on a quest for truth together. Yes, we are. How are you doing, friends? I'm doing just fine. I went shopping today, maskless. And I hope you are too. And if you want to wear a mask, but you don't want to wear a visible mask, you can order from me. One of my new inventions is the Invisimask. You might have seen it. I appeared on Red Pill 78 the other day and announced it there. But yes, let me just put it on. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. There. See? You can't see it. The best part about it is it works with your immune system. So you can get the Invisimasks absolutely free. Donations are accepted. But yes, it'll be teleported right to your face as soon as you order it, and it's absolutely free. But donations are accepted. Now, friends, I want to talk to you about someone who was on the scene with the UFO crowd way back in the early 50s. And this is a book from 1953, Flying Saucers Have Landed, by Leslie and Adamski. George Adamski, of course, was the famous photographer. He's an amateur photographer and astronomer. He captured some amazing images on his with his telescope and camera of these amazing craft. That's one of them here. I will put that up on the screen for you. It's a very interesting book. He goes over the whole history from 1953 backwards of the flying saucer phenomenon, going back into even ancient times, talking about the Vimanas, Sanskrit, 1800s, all the way up until 1952 or 1953 when this was published in 1953. But it's a fantastic book, friends. And I love these old books because you can get like the newer versions of them, but there's something kind of cool about these old books. And I think there's actually more information in these old ones than there is in the new ones. And look at that. It's a close-up of the landing gear, what he calls the landing gear, but I think probably is the gravity wave generator. Here's some more pictures in this book. Now, he became fairly famous. He never made any money on this, which, the government works very hard to discredit anyone who comes out with this kind of information, and they were even doing it back then. And the captain of the Air Force who was running Project Blue Book at the time called him a quack. And a lot of people, when a person of authority says something, then a lot of people listen to that, sadly, and they don't listen to the actual eyewitness that has proof. Now, here's something curious. When George Adamski had an encounter in the desert with some aliens, human aliens, who claimed they were from the planet Venus. However, now they might have been from the planet Venus. Apparently, we even have a cloud base there right now. But more likely, they were from the inner Earth, because they were talking to people and saying that they were from Venus or Mars or someplace close by. So we don't know really where they're from. And sometimes when the aliens say they're from a certain area, it's maybe they have a base there, but maybe they're not actually from there. So on his film, one of these times when he went out there to the desert to meet with this extraterrestrial, very curious. This was on one of the pictures that was developed. He didn't take a picture. It just appeared with these strange markings on it. It was an undeveloped part of the film, but when they processed the film, that came through for some reason. Very anomalous. And also when the Venetian who he met with left, he left some footprints in the on the ground from the bottoms of his shoes, and he did a drawing of what that bottom of the shoe looked like. Let me get that here for you. But yeah, he photographed many ships, including cigar-shaped ships. I'll show you those in a second. But here's what the bottoms of the shoes looked like. Very interesting. So that's what was left on the ground. Now the craft that looked like, here they are. Now this is a pretty interesting shot here. Now you can see this one here. You can see the saucer shape of it. In the background you can see this larger mothership and several ships either leaving from it or going back to it. So that's a very interesting one. And then this one too, another from another day that he took. Now let me see what years these are from. So this one was March 5th, 1951. He took this picture. March 5th, 1951. And this one was May 1st, 1952, the bottom one, 1952. So pretty spectacular photographs from his telescope. So even though he was supposedly discredited by the Project Blue Beam captain of the Air Force, I still think that he's a very credible witness. Here you can see there's an arrow pointing towards it right here. The craft just leaving. Some friends witnessed the craft leaving and going. When he met with these people, he was supposed to meet them alone, so he left his group behind, and they photographed it. Very interesting. So yeah, George Adamski, look him up. He's a very credible witness. That's my opinion. Very credible witness. He's got some interesting things to say, and he talks about ancient aliens back in 1953. He's talking about ancient aliens, and so he goes back in time. He really does a really good a bit of research in this book, and so we'll be talking about this again on another program as well. But George Adamski, a very important eyewitness with lots of evidence that he took pictures of from the 1950s. And he was censored, and like everybody else in this field, they don't want the truth coming out, friends. They just don't want it coming out. That's why we have to. So share this video far and wide. All right? Alrighty then. Now I want to talk to you about, someone who's very important, and we may have mentioned this gentleman before, and we'll probably mention him again, is Bob Lazar. Now, Bob Lazar, he was working for the government through another different agency. So he got to work in Area S4, and he worked on that craft right there. That is, he called it the sport model. There was a hangar. It was built into the side of a mountain, and when the doors open, then you saw the hangar. There was 9 of them, 9 craft in there. He only had access to the sport model, and he only had access to the bottom level and the middle level, not the top level. So he doesn't really know what is in the top level. He gives his ideas of what might be there, but very fascinating. The seats were way too small for humans. There are 3 seats, very few panels. He said at some point when the craft was powered up and certain things were activated, one of the panels on the side of the ship would actually turn clear. And so that's quite interesting. I'll show you what the craft looks like. I have the model here, one of the models. And you can see these sort of elliptical kind of area here. That would actually turn clear. So, and there's the bottom, what the bottom looks like. Yeah, so this is the model kit, and quite amazing. So he got to work on this thing back in the 90s, and he came forward, told his story to avoid being killed. So he made public his story, and he kind of disappeared into the woodwork. He gave a really good video on the workings of the craft, how it was powered, how it really worked, how they were able to travel vast distances over space without going faster than the speed of light. They simply just bent space. They used a gravitational field. They generated a gravitational field, very strong, equivalent to, say, a black hole. And they could bring the destination to them, and they just travel a short distance, and they were there and unbend it. And quite fascinating. They used what he called element 115, which didn't exist when he was talking about this, but they have since discovered it. And element 115, you see, there's so many. What happens with element 115 is the gravity A wave, because gravity has 2 waves, A and B, according to Bob Lazar. It's not a particle, it's a wave. And when the gravity A wave extends just beyond the nucleus of the atom, and it can be accessed and amplified from there, and that's what this craft does. And it also uses the element 115 as a fuel source as well, and it's like 100% conversion. There's no waste, which is, our physics say that can't happen, but he saw this thing work, he studied it, and that was his job, to figure it out, and they did figure it out. And it's just fascinating, and when you listen to him talk about it, it makes sense. And he kind of disappeared into the woodwork for, I don't know, 30 years? And now he's come back. He did a video with Joe Rogan and a few other people, but he's not really into this whole thing. A lot of the people in the government say that he's been debunked. He hasn't been debunked. All of his information's pretty much ironclad, I'd say. And something curious happened. When I was reading a book by Brian Greene, The Elegant Universe, he was talking about string theory and how these Caliube shapes, these twisted up dimensions that are kind of embedded into all our dimensions. There's 11 dimensions according to string theory, but these Caliube shapes, which are twisted up dimensions. And I suddenly had a mental vision, a thought about, well, maybe the gravity waves coming up through the Earth go through these Caliube shapes and become amplified. And the more that they go through, the more gravitational pull that planet has. And I actually called up Brian Greene. This was many years ago. And I told him about this idea, and he was very fascinated by it. He said, wow, that would work with general relativity and quantum physics. That's fascinating. And he thanked me, and we said goodbye. We didn't talk for long, maybe 15 minutes. But lo and behold, about a year or 2 years later, Brian Greene started studying gravity waves. And so part of the reason that gave me the thought of the waves was my knowledge of what Bob Lazar was talking about. And gravity waves have now been verified by science. So as time goes on, more and more of what Bob Lazar talked about has indeed become reality. So don't write people off just because some expert says that they're crackpots. There might be a lot more to their story than the experts think. Use your own discernment. But yes, so that's what I'd have to say about that. Now, so George Adamski and Captain Edward Ruppelt. Captain Edward Ruppelt was the Project Blue Book captain of the Air Force that claimed that Adamski was. Of course, he's going to try to debunk it because he's the official guy, and if he doesn't, he's out. They really don't want you to know this, and there's lots of reasons why they don't want you to know this. And that brings me to the next thing is Space Force. Now, Space Force is very important. We talked about that before. We're going to talk about it again. It just started this year under President Trump. And it's the first new department of the military since 1947 when the Air Force was started. Now, the Air Force was started shortly after the Roswell incident because to deal with that, right? Now, Space Force is to deal with, number one, well, one of the things is China, because they had access to all of our information, our special access programs through Hillary Clinton's emails. They've developed into space rapidly, so we have to counter that. Also, the extraterrestrial threat, and it's a vehicle to release information that we already have made over the past 70 years in the secret space program to the public, so that we can bring it to the public, advance our civilization here on Earth to the level where it is out in space, the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, the secret space program, as it were. And all these bases and everything will be opened up to the public. We don't know when. One of the first things they might try to show us is there is a rotating space station in space that's maybe 50 to 100 years in advance of our space station, but it's been up there for many decades. That might be made public. And also the TR-3B. It's a triangle-shaped craft we've had since the 50s. It has some anti-gravity technology in it, and that's what they use to go out into space and to the moon. And so that hopefully will be released soon, along with a lot of other things. And so strap in, folks. Put on your helmet. Put on your tinfoil hat, because it's about to get very interesting with Space Force and with the internet. We can look up things. I mean, we can look up, you hear something, now you can look up all these things that you hear about. And if you have any comments about George Adamski, Bob Lazar, or Space Force, put them in the links below. Also, check out my Teespring t-shirt shops. That's how you can support the show. Also, I have Cash App and PayPal. And Tell your friends, like and share. That's the best way you can help to get this word out. Let's make the world the place where it's supposed to be, the future. Hey, it's 2020. We should be in the future. Until next time, this is Aaron Moriarty signing off. Peace in peace. Thank you very much.